Good evening, everybody. The date today is Thursday, the 12th of January, 2023. Can you believe it? 2023. And something's changed. The boys are in their studios, and you unfortunately have to look at us this year. Well, you don't have to look at us, but you've got the option of looking at us. That's right. This year, Tiger Town is going live on YouTube, even though it's not live. So we're live, but you won't be watching it live, but we might be doing a live later in the year. I'm rambling already, and we're only 30 seconds into our first episode. I better welcome Toby. How are you?
Good, mate. Good, mate. Yeah, just pretty keen for the new year, pretty keen for 2023 season. I mean, we're going to talk about all the signings. We're going to talk about everything that for once has gone right for this club. But yeah, it's definitely made me very eager. So, but yeah. So how was your off season, so to speak?
It wasn't bad. It wasn't bad, to be honest. I'm trying to wrap my head around whether we're saying viewers or listeners or what we're saying these days. But yeah, the Christmas time is always a special time in everybody's life, I guess, but us in particular. I tend to get a nice little break over that time, and we tend to try to get away as best we can, and went down the coast, a little place called Coffs Harbour with the banana benders down there. So plenty of waves were had. Cooked a fair few of them, but that's all right. Weekend warrior, that's what happens. What about you?
I went a little bit further south than you did. I went down to a country town called Shepparton with my in-laws. So
a few shepherds down there. Ton of them, actually.
There's a few there. There's a few.
Yeah.
But no, I went down there and yeah, like you said, same thing, just got away for a bit and switched off and back in the grind of things. But, you know, it's 2022, we can sort of kick 2022 away. We can look at 2023 and we can be excited. The worst thing is I still get excited every year, no matter what's happening. I still think I've still got that optimistic streak in me. Had been for, oh God, probably since, I was a young, so 30 years, optimistic streak every year. But there's a different smell in the air at the moment, which is a good thing. So
it's the curse of being a Tigers fan, isn't it?
It is. It really, really is. Anyone's listening, watching, whatever you're doing right now, and you are like Zac and I, and you're diehard Tiger supporters, you know exactly what we're talking about. So.
Yeah, well, look, we are here for our first episode for 2023, and we've got a lot to cover. We had a bit of a pre-show chat about where we wanted to kick things off, and I think that we both can agree, and the viewers and listeners might also agree, that 2022, we're going to leave that in the past. We're going to move on. We don't want to dwell on that too much, but what we might actually have a bit of a talk about in a moment is, I guess, all the changes, and we're not just talking roster changes, but there's a lot of changes across the board, and just how they might implement those changes, and how those changes in particular might impact on the team going forward and the club going forward. Because there's a lot of change afoot heading into this year, isn't there?
There is, and looks like it's a lot of positive change. There's probably a couple of changes in there that people are probably divided on. Some people will say it's a good thing, some people say it's a bad thing, but I'd like to say that probably 95% of the changes that have happened in the last 3 months in particular are very, very good changes. So yeah, it's exciting, and I don't know, like, whether it's, we'll dive deeper into all of this, but whether it's the coaching changes, whether it's the actual smart signing changes, whether it's, the new center of excellence and all this jazz, and, people wanting to play for the club rather than, us shelling out these massive dollars for people that are at the back end of their careers. Ivan Cleary. It's just, I don't know what we could be more excited about, but it's, like I said, there's just a different smell in the air. It's, the optimism was always there every single year, but I'm always very bullish in my predictions, and I always have said that almost every year. I'll say Tigers make the 8, Tigers make the 8, Tigers make the 8. I'm not feeling bullish about a prediction like that at the moment. I'm feeling pretty comfortable with it, to be honest. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, it wouldn't be preseason optimism without gunning for us to reach the 8 year after year, and you might be onto the money a little bit this year.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's definitely, I think it's a little bit more than optimism. So even Fox Sports has said we'll make it. And Fox Sports hates the Tigers. Always says what we're doing, always leaks the worst stories about us, never gives us positive media or anything like that. But even they said we'll make the 8. And so if they're saying it, it's not it's not an omen, but it's it's definitely going in that direction. So
yeah, it's still mixed reviews heading into the season for sure. I know the tab markets are still giving us a bit of a flogging, and if it wasn't for the Dolphins being around, then there might be a little bit of a strife. But it's the answer, as Hooper likes to say, is a pineapple at the moment. So
yeah, well, that's the thing. When, like, for somebody that did work in the betting industry for a few years, it's a lot of that's got to do with what the people are putting the money on, not what the actual market's saying. So not a lot of people are putting money on us. So they keep the odds high to attract people to put their money on that. So
well, this means we're good value.
Bloody oath.
I'm thinking
I've already put money on us to make the 8. It's fine.
Have you? To make the 8? Right. That'd be good value, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I think I got it about $14
to make the 8.
No, that's to make the 4.
Wow.
So that's to make the 4.
To make the 4.
I think it was about $6.
That's $6. Still a lot of bucks.
Yeah. So,
well,
by the way, just a disclaimer: gamble responsibly.
Yeah. Well, if you're in a responsible mood, if you're not, be slightly irresponsible. It's up to you. Where I don't think anybody's coming after us for slipping too many dollary dues on the West Tigers this year. So I think we're safe there. But as we continue to blow up and the listeners continue to flock in droves, then we might have to put a few more PSAs out in regards to being responsible with your vices. But in the interim, speaking of PSAs, we might as well put our PSA out, as we got a little bit too excited for our first show of the year and got a little bit too far down the road into topics before we actually put out the information about what's going on this year with all our socials and all our doings and movings. Well, folks, we've entered the Facebook stratosphere over the off season, so you can find us at Tiger Town Podcast on Facebook. Come on, throw us a like, and you'll miss hopefully nothing. If you don't do that, you might miss something. But what you'll find on there is obviously links to all our shows and our updates when they drop. We're looking at doing a couple of live match watches, starting with trials, which will be interesting. That will all be coming either via Facebook Live or the link will be shared there. All our inside goss that we have through our connections will be posted through there, and just all things Tigers news and relations and discussions. So hop on the Facebook page and give us a like. You can also find us over at our YouTube channel, our Tiger Town YouTube channel as well, where we'll be hosting all of our videos. And you can interact with us there as you normally would. Comments section, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. We'll be building that as the year progresses. Bear with us a little bit. It's our first few raw into the video space, and we apologize in advance, as we said earlier, for having to look at our ugly mugs. But
speak for yourself. I'm a handsome bloke.
Yeah, you are actually, mate. You're going all right for a bloke who has a fair bit of light emanating off that nicely polished chrome dome. You're doing rather well. To those who are simply listening via Spotify, appreciate your support as always. Make sure that you, what do you do on Spotify? Do you like? Do you subscribe? I can't remember what we do to channels.
Yeah, you save the pod.
Save the pod and follow, which I'm sure all of our listeners have. So if we're going through anything that's visual of nature, then obviously that is something that we'll try to mitigate as we go. But follow us on your favorite socials. Get over to YouTube. Get over to Facebook, and bigger and better this year. And we can't wait. We're pretty excited, and we're learning as we go, particularly in regards to the visual space. So, without further ado, there's our PSAs for episode 1, 2023.
Yep, I didn't even think to do that. So yeah, good thing you're on board.
Oh, and I forgot actually. For those that aren't aware, we've got our name badges that come up when we're doing our podcast. But for those who might not have access to it or haven't looked at it yet, I'm Zac, and he's Toby. Toby, say hi.
How you going? See, you
Yeah.
guys have never seen our faces. You've only ever
So,
heard our voices. But
yeah, so
yeah,
lucky you.
I know.
Tell us, feel free to drop on Facebook or in the comments section in YouTube.
Oh,
Who's the more
troll.
handsome? Who's the more handsome out of the two? I know
Well,
it's a flip of a coin,
I
and you
don't want
might
to put
get
you
into
to
the
shame, mate.
decimals out of 10. What are we thinking? 1.6, 1.7. We're both about there, pushing a high 2 out of 10. But yeah, see how
Speak
we
for
go.
yourself. Speak for yourself. I'm pushing at least a 3.6.
3.6.
Yeah.
You must have been hitting the old the Bowflex over the holidays, were you?
I haven't heard
P90X.
Bowflex in years. I haven't heard Bowflex in years. Do they still exist?
Oh, I don't know. You tell me. You've upgraded.
Yeah.
3.6. Must be
Clearly.
Tybo, mate.
Oh, no, I started doing hot yoga. It's great.
Yeah, you've been doing some Anthony Robbins, finding yourself.
Yeah, 100%.
Excellent. All right. Well, PSAs and nonsense aside, folks, how about we get into the show, hey? We spoke earlier about how there are many changes afoot in Tiger Town, in Tiger Land, in Concord. And I would, Toby, you might tend to agree, I guess, but I would tend to err on the side of saying this is possibly the biggest overhaul between seasons in the Tigers' short history. And even going back to Western and Balmain of what my history a little bit is prior following the Balmain Tigers specifically, I can't remember a year where a club that I followed, our club, has been so, yeah, well, from top to bottom, we're talking squad, we're talking coaching, we're talking facilities, all in one season, and the changes that have happened. What do you reckon?
No, I was saying to you this the other day. I can't remember a time when there's been this, like, we've had overhauls. We've had all of those significant changes. We had the 2013 Adam Blair going to bring massive massive recruits with him and all that jazz, all that hype around him. And then what did we get? Braithen Astor. Yeah, it was awesome.
New South Wales, ex-international Braithen Astor. How could you forget him?
Because it's Braithen Astor. Mate, Nathan Merritt was an ex-international, an ex-state of origin.
Nathan Merritt.
So,
yeah, what's he doing? He'd be a very Tigers signing.
No, he would be, wouldn't he? He'd very
about
much
41 and
signing him. Yeah, it's funny. I could sit there and say, it'd be like signing Matt Utai, but I actually think Matt Utai was pretty good for us. So I'm not going to say that.
He did quite well. Yeah, he did quite well. I'll never forget the try he scored in the semi-final when we won 50-4.
Against the Doggies.
Against the Doggies. It wasn't a semi-final, sorry. It was just a regular end-of-season match. But
it was the last regular season match of 2000.
Yeah, 2011.
I thought it was 2005.
Was it 2005? Was Utah wasn't in the side back then, was he?
Wasn't in our side. I don't think Utah was in our side when we were actually playing decent footy. I think Utah was in our side when we were pretty shocking. I think.
Yeah, I vaguely remember him.
Yeah,
I might have my wires crossed a little bit, but
Yeah,
I vaguely remember him being part of a flogging of Canterbury.
He could have been. He could have been, but I don't think he signed until 2013. Yeah,
he was probably one of those ones that did better than average, I'd say.
Yeah, I think he was undervalued when we signed him, and then
we got value out of him.
Yeah, had a point to prove, but back to the original point. It's been phenomenal what's been achieved in such a short period of time, and I said this to you. For those that are new to the channel and those that haven't listened regularly, we often refer to my brother, who's another huge West Tigers fan. We have a chat and we always talk about it. We always try to see what's going on in Tigerland pretty consistently.
Todd's a bit of the behind the scenes part of the brains trust behind Tiger Town, I guess. A lot of our in-depth podcast-based conversations happen with him privy and him leading a lot of them. To be honest, it's just where the boys up on the mics.
Exactly. But having a chat with him and yourself, and I put out which we'll talk about later on, a predicted team list and things like that. And I was saying, I don't think I've seen a squad this strong in about 5 or 6 years. Since Tedesco was here, since Moses was here. It's but a lot of it has come from the forward pack.
Yeah,
like
no doubt.
We'll talk a bit more in depth, but the 2 last signings, I think, are going to be game changers for us. So,
yeah. Oh, no doubt. We spoke about Sheens and Benji and the coaching setup last year when it was announced, and then obviously leading towards the end of the year when the Kamali situation was happening, and we don't really need to draw out, I guess, too much around that. Nothing's really changed. We haven't seen what that football looks like. Obviously, the experience that Sheens has, the inexperience of Benj, but with him, Robbie, and David Furner basically as try assistants, you would not find a more experienced in terms of game wise assistant coaching setup. I don't think.
I don't think
three assistant coaches.
Yeah,
David Furner's got head coaching experience and played
200 odd games.
100%. Yeah, and high quality too in that Canberra side. In that Canberra side of the late 90s, I think David Furner was in. I think he played a little bit with the Clydes and that, but they were on the way out, and the Quinton Pongiers and Ruben Wickies and whatnot. But so look, the experience is there. We know what they've said they're going to bring, which is attacking flair. We know that they've basically said that they're going to the side, and the tactics are going to look unfamiliar. So it's going to be a completely different side, and that is not only on paper, I think, but it's how they actually execute on game plans and whatnot too. So yeah, I think that a lot of that is yet to be opened. So if that's a Christmas present, we're yet to open it.
Yeah.
But I think we've spoken about that a little bit in the past, and that's exciting unto itself.
Yeah, just a little bit of a recap for Furner, because I just wanted to double check. So he was in the 94 squad that won the grand final.
Didn't play though. Did he play?
I think he played. I haven't.
Okay.
But he also went over and played Super League for 4 or 5 years. All up, he's played 300 games. So you got 3 assistant coaches with a total of 900 plus first grade games between them. Nearly
1,000 games, and then you got what would probably be the most experienced head coach. Certainly in years coaching. I don't know. Bellamy would be pushing, but
I think
Bennett obviously.
I think Bennett's still up there, but I think it's the second most. Yeah,
certainly up there. Short of Bennett, I'd say Sheens would be probably the second best. So for all the talk, there's inexperience coming into that role, and and there are legitimate concerns around Sheens not having had success for a while, being out of the NRL for a while, but. The bottom line, I think, is that the experience, whether it's coaching, whether it's playing across that coaching setup, is second to none. That's the bottom line. It's the irony. We're going through the numbers. There is the experience across those 4 coaches. I'd put money on the fact that that's almost double the next best.
Oh yeah. But another quick thing, when we talked about Furner and the 94 squad, he actually won the Clive Churchill medal.
In 94?
94, yeah.
Oh, there you go. I was way off. I thought he came a little bit after, so he was part of that. Meninga, Mullins.
I think Stewart was still there, yeah.
Belcher.
Stewart, Daly.
Belcher still there. Daly, Stewart.
Kenny Nagus.
Noah Andruku.
I loved Kenny Nagus growing up.
Ray Clyde. Glenn Lazarus was there at the time.
Yeah, the brick.
That was a side.
Oh, yeah. But that's it. Like, he has had a head coaching experience, and he hasn't delivered on that part. But at the same time, he's been assistant coach for where's he been assistant coach for the last 3 years?
He was at Newcastle.
Oh, and Doggies.
Yeah, but he was also at South Sydney, I think, when they won I think he might have been defensive coach when they won.
No, he was
2014.
he was at the Cowboys when they won.
Cowboys, was it?
Yeah,
I knew it
Cowboys.
was one. I knew it was one or the other.
Yeah.
A couple of swings and misses tonight, folks. Can't dig up all the factoids, but
That's why I'm here.
yeah.
You keep talking, I find the facts.
Yeah. So look, if nothing else, being promised the fact that we're going to see a completely different style is encouraging. Knowing that combination, albeit when Sheens was coaching and Robbie and Benji were playing, was, if nothing else, exciting. It was a good time to be a Tigers fan because everybody loved them because they were entertaining. So
Yeah.
at the very least, hopefully we can see some of that come back.
Apparently, Appy loved them. Do you hear that?
Yeah.
That interview. Yeah. Apparently,
he's good. He's good at saying what people want to hear. I think Appy. Yeah. Same as he was good at saying what the Penrith crowd wanted to hear in that little post game speech. So I think he just floats with the breeze, little Appy. But glad to have him.
Oh yeah. Easily. Well, he's top. I'd probably easily put him in, for me, he's the best hooker in the game at the moment. But if that's a bit of a stretch, you can't deny he's probably one of the top three.
Yeah. So on that note, let's have a little bit of a talk about our signing. So Appy being the first one. What's your make on having seen him in our colours for the first time?
I will be honest, I was a little bit hurt with his comments. So I was a bit like, I always wanted him. There was no two ways about that. I was never going to shun him, but I wasn't as excited as I was hoping. But watching, like, the thing I'm loving about the Tigers at the moment is how much footage they're putting out of them in training and structures and things like that. And watching how quick he's moving out and drawing the defenders just in training is so good. So very excited, very, very happy. And yeah, just really, really, what's the word? Like, you and I both love Jakey. We both think that he still has a lot of potential about him, but to have someone of that caliber at our, in our team is just extremely exciting. So,
Yeah, most definitely. I think that we're going to see. We've spoken a little bit about him and he and Papali'i last year because we've known they're coming for over 12 months. But it is good to see him in the colours. We've only seen limited training footage, as you alluded to. But I think the fact that he's going to be able to play that hold-up pivot role out of hooker means that he's going to be another point of attack and point of difference. So he can do what he wants with the markers, which is he's going to immediately give our receivers more time. And if you couple that with the fact that the forward pack is now pushing what you would probably call elite level in terms of the personnel we've got there, if nothing else, our halves are going to have twice as much or even 4 times as much time for some loose arithmetic there to be able to do and execute on what they want to be able to do as per a game plan. So having Appy there, I think, can't be understated. And I think it's one of those signings and one of those acquisitions, one that the Tigers have traditionally not gotten very often, but two, can almost fly under the radar. And what I mean by that is it's not as if people aren't aware of how good a player he is or how big of an impact he can or has had at certain clubs. But I think that he's very easy to underestimate how much he could do for a club like ours. So people look at Appy and they could say, okay, maybe Harry Grant's a slightly better hooker and there's a few others as well. But I think that, or even they might actually look at him and say that Damien Cook could be comparable. Who's another top hooker in the game? I'm having a bit of a blank right.
People are saying that, Reid Marnie's obviously up
Reid
there.
Marnie, like a Jake Brayley, Reece Robson at the top of their games, those types of players that they can do similar roles, and they're just a hooker, and it's a very, Cameron Smith reinvented it, Robbie Farah reinvented that role, but they're very, they've got a very specific role, so their scope for making tremendous change is not that big. However, that's the point I'm trying to make about maybe flying under the radar, that even though it is a hooker role and it is not a fullback, halfback 5'8", which are traditionally thought of as marquees, having a tremendous impact on the football side, he's undoubtedly a marquee signing, and hooker is in that spine position. So I think that if nothing else, we're going to get an A+ hooker, and all the questions are gone in regard to that.
I think that was ever in question when his name was announced. I think that was ever in question that we were getting an A+ hooker. But yeah, like I'm extremely happy that we have an integral part of the spine.
Yeah.
Extremely happy that, it all depends on, I guess it all depends on if Brooksy fires, but that there, and it's very clear now that we have a very solid spine recruitment there. It just depends if the other three play ball. That's all.
Right. So, Apposite Coruscant.
Yep.
We've also obtained a prop. We've obtained 2 second rowers. There are other signings as well. We've obtained a winger come fullback. Yep. And then we've had 2 players come back from season-ending injuries in 2021 and not having played at all last year. So effectively, they're 2 signings unto themselves. So the forward pack itself, with Appy being the cornerstone of that in hooker, is obviously the thing that has it's blown me away, to be honest. The fact that they've been able to do this in one off season is remarkable.
Yeah,
remarkable doesn't even sum it up. The quality of these players, and none of them come without risks. Okay, but the quality of those players in any side, you take any struggling side in the bottom 6 teams, and you add to that side Abby Coruscant, David Clemmer, John Bateman, and Isaiah Papali'i. Nobody does that. The Roosters don't do that. No. The Roosters added Tedesco and Cronk, and everybody was like,
"Holy shit!"
Yeah, and that was 2. And these players aren't quite on that level. I get it, and they were spine players. Not making a comparison, as in saying it's equivalent, but David Clemmer, and this is as objective as I can be, is still probably in the top 5 props of the game. Numbers certainly say that.
100% agree with that.
And if Brandy and Freddie didn't have issues with him personally and viewing him as a cultural issue maybe with the Blues, he'd be one of the first 2 or 3 props picked for the Blues every year continually. He'd still be playing for the Blues. He should be. His numbers are elite. His numbers are so good that they're better than both the Saifidis easily. Yet the Saifidis both played Origin last year. And we'll go a bit more into Clem in a sec. Isaiah Papali'i, second row of the year before last.
I think he was both year. I think he was last year and the year before.
Did he get last year? Did he?
Sean kick out.
Sean Lane?
No, but
I'm there.
No, I'm pretty certain Sean Lane. I'm pretty certain won Eels player.
Might have won Parramatta player of the year. Yeah, right. That's something we can probably check. I'll have a look at that while we're talking. But
yeah, that's what I'm doing.
Yeah, Toby's all over it. Yeah. Always. So, and then you had John Bateman, and we all know what John Bateman did in his short stint at the Raiders. And well, again, we'll go through each of these guys individually and what we think they bring. But look, the fact that immediately you're starting to look for a place for someone like Joe Offahangawi, who won our Player of the Year award last year as the Tigers' best player, and you and I and many others were pushing for, probably putting his hand up to be the captain this year.
Yeah,
we're looking for a spot for him because of who we brought in, and then you've got Fanua Polo, who played his heart out and surprised everybody as undoubtedly. Hey,
and he's extended his contract, so they see big things for him already.
Yeah, one of the best front rowers in the competition. You got Stefu Toikamanu, who had his quiet sophomore year last year, but was touted as the next big thing the year before when he was injury free.
Yeah, his injuries plagued him last year. 100%.
100%. Ankle surgery. He did something else as well, whether it was a hand or something. But
Yeah,
and we're starting to have to find places for these guys.
yeah.
Then you've got Sean Bloor, who is spoken about again as one of the best second rowers coming through. Quality person, hard hitter. And
Like
yeah,
we can
we
all remember
haven't
the
seen
game
him.
he had against Nathan Brown.
Nathan Brown, yeah.
Yeah, didn't back down, didn't do anything, looked him dead in the eyes and said, let's go again.
Yeah, so it becomes a case of going, rightio, well, this forward pack is right up there. And then you take the next conversation, you say, well, we've got a gun. Our juniors are starting to come through slowly, and our earliest ones of this crop that has been long touted are around the 19, 20 years of age, but most of them are all forwards.
Yep.
So the Harold Matts group and the Ball group, they're a mix of forwards, backs, some halves in there, a few centers and whatnot, a few outside backs, sorry, Falidi and Buller and these types of people, Jordan Hill. But the Matamuas, Tumith, who am I missing? Fanua Pole, obviously, Kidiani Kautoga. These guys are all forwards as well. So, sorry?
Siona Fanu.
Sione Fanu, yeah. We haven't seen much of him, but again, he came from Manly, fairly highly touted from a pretty good rugby league family.
Yep.
So, we're getting to the stage where these guys are going to, I say they're going to struggle to get game time, but we can't, it's going to be very difficult to find places for these guys if all of our signings are fit. So I think obviously that's a transition point, and, a lot of these experienced signings are there to carry these youth through as they become more familiar with the rigors of NRL, and then your Batemans and your Clemmers and your Coruscaws will sail off in the sunset and let these new guys come through. But I'll tell you what, trying to think of a better forward pack in the history of this club since 1999. I can't think of one.
Very hard to as complete. Like I think I've mentioned this before in podcasts. But for anyone that doesn't know, probably my favorite West Tigers player of all time was Gareth Ellis. Loved Gareth Ellis. Loved the angles he ran, how hard he tackled, how hard he hit up. I just loved him. And even then, I think he was a diamond in the rough. I don't think we had a solid forward pack. Woods hadn't debuted. We might have still had Toddy Payton.
Woods was on the bench, I think, because Ellis left after 2012. Is that right? Or at the end of 2011? At the end of 2011?
Yeah.
I think Woods started on the bench there then. I don't know. We're pulling out all these obscure references, not helping ourselves.
No, but I think
bench.
you are right. I think you are right. And there was, I think Fafita was also on the bench around that time.
Fafita was on the bench, but he was very raw. He wasn't the Fafita of 2014, 2016,
No.
Keith Galloway, Robbie Farah.
Yeah, there was Keithy.
And that's when Keith played Origin and played a little bit of Australia.
But you also think that was, back when that pack was at its prime, we were playing finals 2010, 2011. Hey,
Liam Fulton, Bryce Gibbs.
Yeah, Fulton, Gibbs. I think we had Mark Flanagan from the UK.
Bronson Harrison, Simon Dwyer.
Yeah, that's a name that still breaks.
Poor
bloke. He could have been anything, that bloke.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So like that forward pack of maybe the 2010, 2011 double season is probably the only thing that would rival it, and it's off the back of someone like Ellis, who was that pure leader. And we get to see obviously how these guys mix as a crew, but it's got the makings. Just are we playing fantasy football? We've just gone out and handpicked John Bateman, Appy Coruscant, Isaiah Papali'i, and David Clemmer.
Yeah.
Like if anybody suggested that in November last year, that in 14 months that would be our preseason heading into 2023 forward pack, just even two of the four the fact that, to say that you'd be laughed at would be an understatement.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing. Like, I think when you really think about it, like everyone's like, oh, we've gone after big names in the past, we've never really been able to pull what's different this time. I can probably tell you right now what's different, and that's Benji. I reckon everyone, like, there wouldn't be a kid our age, like Benji's only 2 years older than us. But even back then, we were idolizing Benji. 1 year older than us. Even back then, we were idolizing Benji. So you think about how young, we're 36 for anyone that didn't, or anyone that cared. You got Clemmer, who's 28. You got Bateman, who's 30. No, 29. 29. You got Appy, who's 30.
29.
Really? I thought he was 30. Oh, there you go.
30 this year, I think.
You got Papali'i, I think, mid-20s.
24.
Yeah. And then like how those guys did not grow up watching Benji Marshall time and time again. And then they get a chance in the signing process to meet Benji. And you can tell, like, I watched a bit of it just because my wife was watching it, but then because I love Benji, I watched a little bit of that Celebrity Apprentice. The bloke just oozes charisma. We've always known this. But to have that in the room when the signing process is happening, that's the difference maker. That would be Benji knows the right things to say. He knows what a player wants to hear. And that is the difference maker, in my opinion.
So. Yeah, we're getting, and to get back into the coaching setup just briefly, I actually really quite like that element, which is the fact that we know where we're going. And we mentioned this last year, way back in August, September, whenever this was announced, that yes, there are question marks around it. Yes, it's a bit of not so much a stab in the dark, but it's a ballsy play from probably the only club that could pull off such a strange way to appoint a coach. We do things unorthodox, and that's who we are. But the fact that we now know who is the coach and what the system is going to be for the next 5 years, and the fact that the bloke who is taking over after 2 years is sitting in on all the contracts and has to sign off on any player now for his squad, and he's already in the room ready to go. That it seems like it's a no-brainer, but that does not happen at any other club. No. Any other club, bar maybe the Dolphins now, because it looks like they're going to do something similar with Christian Wolf, and it will be exactly the same. So that is something I really like about, just that coaching setup. But I digress. Back to what we're talking about with the players. So we broke down Appy quickly, and look, we'll get into these guys a lot more. We've got a fair few preseason shows coming up, and then heading into trials. So we've got plenty of stuff to talk about. We just wanted to basically have a quick chat about each of them and sort of what we think they're going to offer. So, Clem, what do you think Clem is going to bring? We mentioned that his stats are elite still. I still maintain he's definitely put his hand up for top 5 props in the game on his day.
Yeah. I think he brings aggression. By far, aggression is something we've definitely lacked. So I just want to go back onto Clemmer for 2 seconds, but with that top 5, I think he debuted in 2012. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he debuted around the same time as Woods did. We all know they're very close. I think that in, let's say, 10 plus years, maybe let's say 11 years he's been playing. Maybe less, maybe more. No, probably 10 years he's been playing.
I think he debuted as a 19-year-old.
Yeah.
And he's 29. So that would make sense.
So 10 years, I think you could probably say you probably couldn't give too many seasons where he wasn't one of the top 5 props in the game. I think maybe 1 or 2, and he was injured for a lot of that time. His effort has never been in question. That you've never sat there and looked at a game he's played, or you never heard any game someone talk about his game and say he just looked like he was a passenger. Never looked like it. His effort has always been there, and sometimes, especially in his younger days, his aggression got the best of him. He made some stupid things. You always remember that incident where he told the ref he's off his effing head, and got sin binned. So his aggression used to get the best of him.
Makes me miss football.
Yeah, I know, right? It's so good.
Children, if you're listening, firstly, probably don't listen. But secondly, respect the referees.
Yeah,
that's
100%.
Yet another PSA. That's a job that no one wants to do. Anyway, carry on.
But Yeah, it's just funny that you say that. I think I still you're the same as me. When we're watching a footy game and we're watching a bad call against us, sir, oh sir, don't have to call him sir. It's just what it is. It's just respect. So, but yeah, no, I think main thing is aggression is what he brings, and he's never afraid to lead from the front. I think that's another big thing. And we have said this in the past. We've said it with when we signed Packer. We're like, oh, Packer's going to add aggression. Packer's going to do this and Packer's going to do that. And he flopped. Oh, he had a couple of good games, but he was so inconsistent. He was there for the paycheck, but he was also 31.
Yeah. Yeah. And Russell Packer didn't have the playing ability to back up the bravado. He didn't have the motor. He was well and truly past his best, and he never was that player anyway. He had a good season at the Dragons when he came back, but he was never that player at the Warriors. He was good, but he was never brilliant. Anyway, yeah, I wouldn't tend to say that his aggression is overstated, Clemmer, but I think that he actually offers a lot more beneath the surface in that I think I've said it many times already, but I think his numbers are elite in that his running meters and his tackle efficiency, which surprised me. I didn't think he was a sloppy defender, but I thought he was just an average prop, would miss, 10% of tackles, about 90, maybe high 80s. I would have been happy with. He tackles up over 95%. He's up in the realms of 96, 97 for his career.
His post-contact meters are huge as well.
Yeah, and those things are remarkable. So what I like is, as you said, and I think it sums it up well, he's not out there throwing punches at people, but he won't take a backward step.
No.
And so you need at the front of your pack that Mel Gibson on the horse in Braveheart that basically just says, follow me, boys. And it doesn't have to be a Victor Radley grub style. It doesn't have to be a Warrior Hargraves where there's grubbiness in there. Like Clem might have a little bit, but I don't see him being on that same realm. But what I do see is he's the bloke to grab the first kickoff every time and say, put him on my back and follow me. And that's what we have needed for the longest time.
And this is like, he did it at Newcastle, and there was a lot of the times people compared him to, probably in my eyes, one of the greatest props that ever lived, in Paul Harrigan, in the Chief. I think Paul Harrigan always led from the front, but he wasn't grubby. He wasn't dirty. He wouldn't step down if someone threw a punch. We all remember against him and Martin Bella in that Origin, when him and Martin Bella went toe-to-toe. And that's, I love Paul Harrigan. I love the Chief. And everything you're saying about Clemmer right there is the same thing that, the Chief had, and the thing I loved about Paul Harrigan. So, yeah,
exactly right. And that's why he would have been a really good fit at Newcastle. But for whatever reason, he just wasn't enjoying his footy. And in spite of that, was still putting up those good numbers. So that's what I'm really excited about. We have not had someone like that. You see, Galloway was like that, but Galloway didn't have the motor of Clemmer. He was not the footballer that Clemmer was. Yeah, and didn't have the minutes. I don't think he had the tackle efficiency either. So he was a great prop, Keithy. Love him to death. Yeah. And if you're listening, son, get on the podcast, brother.
I was about to say, jump on the podcast, my friend.
Absolutely. We love your free T-shirt.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll throw one in for you. Love you, Keithy. But the numbers that Clem puts up are phenomenal. But yeah, Keithy would do that similar. You mentioned Gareth Ellis being that he was a second rower. A bit of a different role in that sense. I'm trying to think back. Scandalis, but Scandalis was never that elite level that Clemmer is. So it could be the first time in our history we've had that type of front rower.
Yeah, no, like Woods was there, because Woods, when he was there, he was playing Origin for Australia. He was definitely leading from the front.
Different role though, wouldn't it? He put people on his back, but it was a different role.
Yeah, he wasn't the same breed. He was like, when I think of Clemmer, and no matter who he's played for, this is always what I thought of him. He is a forward that will run off the back fence every single time he ran. Woods was one of those ones that was happy to get tackled and then use his leg drive to get even further and even further and even further.
Yeah.
So
turn his back and shuffle backwards.
And then pass if he could. So
different players. Woods was a great player in his prime. And he did look, apologies to Aaron. He did carry that side, that forward pack for probably three years at least, I'd say, by himself. Particularly when Gibbs and Fafita and all those boys left. So 13 through 15, 16, it was all Aaron Woods. So yeah, he was good, but definitely different top player. So I'm looking forward to seeing what Clement can do. And when you got the likes of Steph, we scratched the surface in 2021. Didn't see anything last year because he had the disrupted year, as we said. But he's what, 22?
22.
He's only just starting.
Oh God, everyone's saying that Clem's in his prime and he's 28, 29.
Yeah.
Steph's
I'm excited to see what
before he's in his prime.
You take Steph and Fanua Pole, and then you've got Offa Hengawi there, which I think will be playing a different role as well. We'll discuss that. You've even got Twally, who's the forgotten man, it seems. But yeah, there's a lot going on there in the front row.
100%. And it's funny that you mentioned, you had those leaders back in like 2010, 2011 in the pack, we had your Keithy, who was always, like you said, put it on my back and let's get forward. And then you had the Ellises who are like, put it on my back, let's get forward. Right now, you're looking at two people that do that as well. You're looking at Clemmer and you're looking at Bateman. Apparently, Bateman never really saw it too much at Canberra, but you saw his skill. That's what you really saw. But, the last 3 years since he's been back in England, back at Wigan, he has been a leader. And that's what I think I read somewhere that's what Sheen was really impressed with Bateman is how much of a leader he is. It's, he's not there.
That just surprises me.
Yeah. He's not there just to make the numbers. He's there to, like, his competitiveness, his drive. It's infectious, apparently.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's not that I didn't notice that at Canberra. I guess I was too just focused on his playing ability, but I think you can see clearly in hindsight now, you look at it and you go, yeah, the impact that he had on that team and that pure competitiveness. And you want to talk mongrel, I reckon he's the mongrel in the pack. The first thing I'd be doing when he gets to Australia is I'd be getting him around saying, Rodio, Clem, come over here. Johnny, you and Clement, you're going out and drink.
That was a
Don't come home.
UK accent.
No, I was just trying to do the heavy Johnny one.
Oh, fair.
Yeah, Johnny B. But it's I'd be saying to Clem and John, go away, the pair of you, don't come back till Monday morning, and you two blokes go and get to know each other inside and out. Because the pair of them, if they can become chummy, it's going to be a sight to behold. So let's get on to Bateman specifically there. Then, obviously confirmed 4-year deal. Does not come like anything. Does not come without risks and concerns and questions. But what do you like? I guess at the thought of hearing that news, what do you like straight off the bat about that signing?
Oh, it is the perfect mold to the other side of the pack, to Papali'i. Papali'i is, like, you watch him, he runs amazing lines. He always finds himself in the right place at the right time. Did it for New Zealand as well in the World Cup, was always at the right place at the right time when he needed to be.
He's in everything, isn't he?
He's very instinctive. He knows where he needs to be, even if it's not a set play or anything like that. With Bateman, but he's not flash. He doesn't have a flick pass. He doesn't have anything like that. Bateman is, all right, if we're going to work this side, we're going to do, there's clearly something that could happen that we don't even know what's going to happen. So you work, let's say, I'm pretty certain they'll go Papali'i on the left, or Papali'i on the left, Bateman on the right. You go to the left, you're going to have somebody that will run a hard line as hard as it can. They're going to not stop. They're going to be there when they need to be there. But then if you draw the defenders that way through Papali'i and you push it back out to Bateman, you've got that unpredictability of what he could do. And you don't know whether to hold back. You don't know whether to go forward. You don't know this. You don't know that. And that's usually what a centre brings. And if anyone that doesn't know, that's where Bateman started. Bateman started in the centres. And then he, bulkier, bigger, and moved to the second row. Actually played for England in the centres, if anyone didn't know that.
Yeah. He's very unorthodox, and you're spot on. Papali'i has become that textbook hole runner. You could compare him in some ways to what Gareth Ellis used to be in terms of his attacking ability. that beautiful back through
Oh,
through the gate, or that angled run back in of a short ball, that sort of stuff. And you see him do it, but he's always in the game, Papali'i. He's there on every grabber. He's always there off his half, and that's brilliant. But like you said with Bateman, he's just a jack in the box. So he'll step in, he'll step out, he'll do a pirouette, he'll put a grubber in out of nowhere that nobody's aware of what's happening. He'll crab across field, he'll duck in, he'll weave out, and all of a sudden he'll draw in an extra defender or two, and he'll just create something out of nothing. So I think that the types of players that are instinctual, someone like a Brooksy. So if you've got Brooksy playing on that side with Bateman, I'm not too specific of the lefts and rights. I think that because Papali'i had played both, so I think he played left in the year 2021. I think he played some right last year. So there's talk of him maybe going back to the left of Bateman on the right.
yeah.
But having Bateman there with Brooksy, I think, is going to create quite a lot because, firstly, one thing that I'm not a massive fan of is Brooksy's short balls to his second rowers. And the reason being is that they're a low percentage play, one, because he hasn't had brilliant second rowers with him. But secondly, I think it stifles his creativity. So I think having someone like a Bateman there who is a bit more unpredictable will open up a new little kit bag for Brooksy himself, but also allow Brooks to stay with Bateman when the ball is delivered wide of him and capitalize on a few opportunities that Bateman he himself might create, whether it's an inside off the shoulder, whether it's a grubber back against the grain, or whatever the case may be. So I like the unpredictability of it. And as you said, they're chalk and cheese, the 2 second rowers, and that's what you want because it removes predictability. And if there's
Exactly.
one thing that poor attacking sides have, it's that they're predictable.
Yeah, and that's what we've been for the better part of 3, 4, 5 years. Is predictable, and that was just to go on a little bit of a tangent. That's something that Todd, my brother, mentioned that all these rule changes from Landies and everyone that's kind of had their finger in the pie to speed up the game goes against everything that Madge kind of built his reputation on, which was defense first, gritty, slow the players down, get the defensive structure right, all that stuff. Completions, all that stuff. That's not
Find your corners.
Yeah. And that's the thing. We've just became so predictable because everyone else was speeding up their game. We're like, well, we know what they're going to do. That's fine. Whatever. They don't know what we're going to do. And the amount of times, especially at the start of 2021, we were leaking points like a sieve. And then just got worse at the end of the year. The 72-6 against the Roosters. So it was just because they knew how predictable we were going to be from both attack and defense. So
I think something with our second rowers as well, talking about Ice and Johnny, is what they'll do in defense. So I saw Isaiah Papali'i miss a few tackles last year, and it concerned me a little bit because nobody was talking about it. And I'd watch a few of the Parramatta games because, particularly towards the end of the season, when our season was gone, and they played obviously a fair bit of semis, and they played in the GF, and he made a few defensive errors. However, so did our own. But I think that their defense is going to work reasonably well this year because as far as I'm aware, Bateman is an absolutely ripper defender. And as we said before, he's quite the scrapper. So he's going to be quite good for what I'm assuming is Brooksy on his side. And then you've got Dwayne and Papali'i, but they've got the entire preseason to work together. Now, obviously, last year we lost Bloor in the preseason, which was our starting second rower. We didn't have Dewey for the first half of the season. He came in back from rehab and busted, and we obviously had the chops and changes that we had last year, and we had second rowers coming in. We had Seyfarth playing second row, starting second row at one stage. Garner came in, came out. So the fact that the two boys will be there, albeit Bateman's going to come late in the season, so that might take a little bit of time to click, but two elite level second rows, you don't become elite just on attacking game. You can talk to Kelma Tuilagi about that. So these two boys can tackle, Bateman in particular, but I think that having these structures worked out, particularly Ice, for a decent preseason where they can develop these combinations and their ability to read together, Dwayne and Ison and Jorna and Brooksy, I think that's going to play a fairly big role in tightening up our edges, no doubt. And obviously, with the forward pack in the middle being tightened, and then that prospective improvement in the edges because of the reasons I just mentioned, that unto itself, removed of defensive structures, removed of the quality of defenders we've got coming in, is going to improve the defense by default. And obviously, yeah, I know nothing happens by default in this game, but I think, you'd be hard pressed to argue against those variables that are changing and hopefully changing for the better. So I think the addition of those two boys, for those reasons, maybe that are a little bit under the rug that might not be mentioned or might not be talked about, is only a good thing.
Yeah, I agree. So it's pretty obvious, maybe this pod we're going to talk about the forward pack because there's a lot to talk about, and we'll go into the backs and stuff maybe in the next pod. So let's just keep focusing the forward pack now. We're pretty much guaranteed that 4 of the 6 positions are settled. Who gets the other 2?
Well, we'll go through our 1 to 17, our projected each for each of us, maybe at the end of the show. But let's do our forward pack now then, based on what you're saying. So, do you want me to go first?
Yeah, I want to hear your opinion. This is actually something you and I. This is something you and I actually haven't talked about, so I'm quite keen and interested.
Excuse if you're watching on YouTube too. Excuse the autofocus. We're playing around with our cameras a little bit, and they're wonderful, and the autofocus is working quite well. But we're just trying to get our light settings up as well. So if it is drifting in or out, just bear with us. We're going to iron that out as soon as we can. But it's pretty good watching, I think, as far as we can tell. So back to forward pack. Just as I say that, I've just lost focus. There we are. So obviously, my number 8 is Clemmer, 9 Coruscant. Now, the 10, I'm torn between Steph and Offahengawi. Now, I would play Offahengawi as my starting prop, hands down, in a situation where we had a lock. I don't think we have a situation where we have a lock at the moment. I think in terms of the modern day lock. So for that reason, I would start. I'd probably start 12. And then if 12's in the 17, I'm probably starting 12, and then I'd have Isaiah Papali'i 11, John Bateman 12, and Offahengawi in the 13. The reason I would start 12 is I like the idea, at least to the start of the season, with Steph missing a bit last year, of having he and Fanua Pole coming off the bench. I would then also have Sean Bloor off the bench, and then, well, I've skipped over my 14, but my 14, we'll get into talking utility in a little bit. Even as I say that, I'm not overly happy with it because I know that I'm missing out quite a lot of youngsters. Watching the training footage, I've seen a bit of Matamua doing a fair bit of ball playing, and that might have just been the snippets that I've seen. I don't know that he's ready for that position. If, say, by mid-season, Matamua was really stepping up, he was good in what we'd seen, but if he does a Fanua Pole and he looks like a starting lock with those silky hands by round 10 to 13, because I think he's in the top 30 now, then I'd be more than happy to see him start at 13. I'd be pushing Joe O to starting prop because I was a gigantic fan of what he did, Joffa. And then I'd have Steph Pole, and I'd almost be the bloke to miss out. What are you thinking?
I'm actually going a little bit different to you. We've got our top, our first 4. We've got Clemmer, Appy, Bateman, Ice.
Those boys pick themselves.
Yeah. I'm starting Pole. So I think Pole has done more than enough to prove himself. I agree with you in that Steph, how much he's missed out on over last year. He should come off the bench to get that back. This isn't to say that, this is how I'm obviously not a coach, so I don't say it's going to be like this. And that's not to say that, Steph couldn't get his way back into the starting. This is what I think is the best option at the moment. I've got years of experience, so I know what I'm talking about. It's fine. Don't worry about it.
Years of experience picking fantasy sides anyway.
Actually, I hate that shit. Bores me.
Oh, I don't mean on the actual website, but just in fantasy land,
Yeah,
picking
true.
fantasy sides. Yeah.
So yeah, I'd start Pole. I think Pole has done, like I said, done more than enough, and I think he's got the energy, the grunt that we need. And my lock's Joffa, only because, like you said, we don't have a lock. We don't have a standard lock. I hear too that I read somewhere that maybe Toomuth has been practicing at lock as well, which is interesting because you love Toomuth. You've spoken fair bit about him last year.
Look, I haven't seen a whole lot of him, but I just know he comes highly regarded. He's not the biggest bloke in the world. And so I don't actually have an opinion on him, but just from what I've read, he comes pretty highly regarded. So, yeah, I'd like to think that he's a good little player. The other bloke that we could mention possibly is Jake Simpkin out of left field. And I don't know what his passing ability is like. You'd assume he'd be pretty good as a hooker. But there's a possible left field option as a lock. The other person you could mention is Rua Natakura.
That's very
Who
true.
Who seems to be the forgotten man.
Yeah, the twin of the cheese. So
Cheese 2.0.
We've got Brie and we've got Blue.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. So there's a few young options there.
But here's another option as well. Bateman doesn't play second row. Bateman plays lock, and Blore comes in and plays second row.
Yeah, definitely an option.
Yeah.
A few people have spoken about that. I think just given the fact that Blore hasn't played a match for the best part of 18 months by the time the trials roll around, and given the fact that, I'm a big believer in, generally speaking, if you're signing a gun player, you play them in a position that that they're best played at, which is second row. And obviously, you've got to be able to fill gaps as best you can, and if that's the situation. But there's nothing that tells me that Bateman would be any better, say, in lock than a Offa Hengawi or Matamua for that matter. So for that reason, I'd rather have him second row.
In saying that, but we've seen already that the best position is not always what Sheen thinks their best position are. Hastings played lock, said to him in the offseason, we're going to play you at lock.
That's true.
So
Benji also allegedly told Joffa last season that he's not a lock. Yeah. So it'd be interesting to see where the chips fall in that regard.
Yeah. No, 100%.
So yeah, look, and it's somewhat unsettled. All those sides that we've mentioned, or the majority of them have us missing out Talau as an option for second row, although more likely still a centre at this stage coming back from an injury. Twal may miss out on one of the two of those sides. Blore, I think we've agreed, is the backup second rower on the bench, but you've got Toomuth there, Natakura, Jake Simpkin as a hooker option there. You've got Kidioti Kautoga, you've got Matamua. These are all top 30 guys now. Matamua may well be. No, he was upgraded. He was supposed to be development this year. He's been upgraded. He's top 30. Yep. So that's with all those guys missing out at this stage.
You also forgot your best mate too. Seyfarth misses out, which is so unfortunate.
I didn't forget Alex Seyfarth. I deliberately left him off the team sheet.
If you listen to this, Alex, it's not because we don't like you. We just don't think you're a good footballer.
I think you're a fantastic footballer, mate. You're a much better footballer than I ever was. However, this is the major league, son. And look, Seyfarth has been a good stopgap player, and he's the sort of bloke that not dissimilar to a free bun, who you want to have in your New South Wales Cup side, because if the sky falls and you can't fill your squads, he is a reasonably reliable player to bring up. In my opinion, he's barely a top 30 player, especially at a strong side or a strong club. And I think that he was just in the right place at the right time, as in a poor club who suffered injuries to be able to get the game time that he did. And look, that is no, well, I guess it is a comment on his footballing ability, but he's to me, he's just not a consistent first grade footballer. I just think he's a very, very good footballer who probably is a reserve grade footballer, which, mind you, is very, very high level football.
Yeah,
So,
I'm not.
yeah,
I'm not saying that I'm any better than him. I'm the best armchair footballer you ever met in your life. Just saying, you're not a first grade
yes.
footballer.
No, I don't think so. So, yeah, for me, he's not even in the conversation. He obviously is because he's still contracted, but I don't think he'll be here this time next year. I'd be very surprised if he is. So I think that speaks volumes as to where he ranks in the pecking order. Let's just put it that way. But stranger things have happened.
True.
Mm.
So I guess that leads
Righty-o.
us. We've talked about the pack now. Maybe we go through our predicted 1 to 17. I mean, we've gone through the signings. Still have a lot more pods to do before the first trial match, which I believe is Feb 9th. Correct me if I'm wrong on that one.
Is it? Okay. I know that the Māori versus Indigenous game is the 11th. So it may well be the same weekend or the weekend following. We'll have to double check the schedules.
Yeah.
I tend to ramp up more specific date mode for the football season, maybe towards the back end of January. If I go off half cock too early, I think I get a little bit too excited when it's just the 12th of January. So
Yeah.
we'll know a little bit more maybe in the coming weeks. But yeah, it's going to be about that mark early Feb, mate, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. I'm pretty certain I am right. So I'm going to put my money where my mouth is and say it's the 9th of Feb. So we've got a lot more to do in terms of pods. So, we can go through our predicted 1 to 17 now. And again, very, very early on, like, Jesus, they only just got back after Christmas. I think that's their first week back, if not their second.
I think next week we'll talk a bit more about the backs, which will probably follow along from what we mentioned in our 1 to 17. But mate, I went first before, so if you want to run with yours and just give us a couple of cliff notes to it.
I'm going to say that Laurie will keep his fullback position, and we'll talk more about the backs later on. So we've got Laurie at fullback. You've got Noffer on the wing. It's very hard to throw him out at the moment. You've got, I can't see Stafford Todd getting a start again unless we have injuries. So he's missing out. So I've got Talau starting alongside Naden. And then I've got Mamalo on the other one. Now, that one is going to be a toss-up. I've stuck with Mamalo just because he has proven how good he is in the air. But he has been very injury-prone since coming to us. And they might go with Staines, but I'm going to stick with Mamalo. My halves pick themselves in Dwayne and Brooks. We've just talked about our packs. So, you've got Clemmer, Appy, Pole, Ice, Bateman, Offer. Now, my utility is going to be, I tossed up between this one, but I was watching a lot of their training videos and they kept using Simpkin and Appy as a 1-2 punch. So I'm going to put Simpkin as my utility. Then you got Blore, Utukumanu, and Twal is my 1 to 17. So
yeah, nice. Yep.
What about yourself?
It sounds good. My back five's the same. I actually think Staines will get the jump.
Yep.
We'll get the jump on
Mamalo.
Yeah, we'll get the jump on Mamalo. So I just got to make a quick adjustment on my light. Do I look a little bit dark to you there?
Sure.
Or am I exactly the same?
You're fine.
All fine. As I said, first pod doing it this way, we're just making a couple of adjustments. There we go. Maybe it's just on my end. So my back five is the same as you. I think Laurie will still get the nod. But I think that Staines will get picked over Mamalo. And I think there's a couple of rumblings, and they're not really rumblings, but they're just maybe speculation that Mamalo might get a little one-way ticket back to New Zealand. So possibly elsewhere, but maybe back to New Zealand. He's a New Zealand bloke. He's based there and his family's there and whatnot. So he might get himself a little swan song maybe for 2 years and an early release. Whether that happens or not now, I don't know. He was a Madge man, so I like Mamalo. I like what he did.
Yeah. I don't know.
But I I think that with Benji and Benji, Robbie, and Sheens, their obsession with speed, I think picking Staines for them will be too hard to resist. So I think that Staines will actually get the nod, and Mamalo might be out for the initial side. As you said, the halves pick themselves, Dwayne and Brooks. I've got Clemmer, Appy, and Twal. And then I've got the rest of the forward pack, as we said, that it's nice to know that does pick itself, and quality too. It's not just, we've got nothing better. So Isaiah Papali'i, 11, Bateman, 12, Joe Offahengawi, 13. My 14, I think you're right. I think my 14 is Simpkin, and I think training footage is alluding to that. There are other options there. Depending on... Yeah, well, Will Smith's a training trial, so unless he gets signed on, he's not an option just yet. So he currently, as it stands, can't play until round 10 unless he's upgraded. So he's not a utility option right now. But yeah, I think Simpkin will play that role. I don't think Appy's played 80 minutes consistently for a while. He definitely can play 80. But I think they like Simpkin as a lock option too. And I think if Joffrey is playing in that position out of necessity, then I think that we might well see Simpkin come on either for Appy or Joffa as he rotates into the prop rotation.
Yep.
And then the rest of it is just, as I said before, it's going to be Pole, Blore, and Atoka Manu, which is a really exciting bench for me.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think, we're pretty aligned with how we think the side's going to look. Obviously, it's just a couple of different position changes. But yeah, like I would easily say on paper, whether I'm right about Mamalo or you're right about Staines, whoever gets that, because we basically got the exact same pack, but that, the exact same side, but that. I can't remember a round one, and this is obviously touching wood, that nothing happens in the preseason. Everyone gets through injury free. I honestly think it's one of the best ones we've had on paper for a very long time.
Yeah, it's been a while. And that gets me, you mentioned that earlier, and I wanted to go into something there, which is there are still obvious holes in the side. The forward pack's not one of them. The forward pack is elite. I'm happy with the forward pack as it is. I think that's a premiership winning forward pack.
I still think we both still agree there's a hole in lock, but that's the only thing.
There is, but I think that's only a time constraint thing, because I think the likes of Matamua and these, even Chris Fagutu that's coming up from Wavell here, even the younger wave of juniors, Lachlan Galvin in Harold Matts, all these guys that are coming through that are 17, 18, 19 years of age. We got locks coming out of our ears in the next sort of 3 to 4 years. So I don't think that's a long-term problem. And I think that will be fixed quite easily in time.
Yeah.
Kit Leoali'i, another one as well. So, there's no shortage of locks coming through. So I think that hole will be plugged sooner rather than later. But obviously a holes still exist in the backs. What do you see as our maybe 2 or 3 major things? Or just give me one even. What's a hole that you still see that needs to be addressed for you? Let's say by 2025 when Benji takes over.
We need a quality centre. That's what we need.
I got one for you.
Who's that?
Okay. So there was some talk of Ramian, and I'm not on him. To me, hoggy centres only work in certain sides. Ramian's a tuck and run type of centre to me. He's a Bradman Best type of centre. So, and the talk is that he'll end up staying with Cronulla after all, but Benji perhaps was interested. We've got a centre signed out on Manly who joined the side last year named Josh Falidi, who is 18 come 19, 34 tries in 18 odd games in SG ball. So he'll be getting a run in flag, and quite possibly, depending on the situation, the squad over the course of the year might get a little taste of first grade this year. The other one to remember is, or to not forget, is Talau. So it's quite easy to forget that Talau was one of the top centre prospects in the country coming through, and did it so young. If we look back to what he was doing as a 19-year-old, then I think that that he is due. If he's not, he's not. But I think that he's going to be starting to come into a mature body now, and he's due for a decent little amount of realizing of that potential. And I think that he might surprise a few people if he can stay injury free. The third one would be Junior Tupou. So I'm talking all in house. Junior Tupou, we got a little taste of last year. And I think same thing, very young. And as these blokes mature, get stronger and more confident, I think that these guys have the skill set to be able to fill those roles most definitely. It's nice to have some depth there though.
Oh yeah.
So, you know, in our sides, obviously, understandably, Kapoa can't make the side, Toa can't make the side. They were our starting centers for most of last year. And look, to be fair on them, did a reasonable job. Excuse me, considering. So, you know, nated until our start for us, but you know, we've got some decent backups there.
Yeah, no, that is very true. That is very true. I still, yeah, I don't know. I think the thing I've got to remind myself too is, you know, he was touted as a centre Talau, and yet he kept getting put on the wing. And, you know, it's a very different position these days. It's not just, yeah.
And he wasn't a nippy centre either. So it was a bit cumbersome on the wing, but he did a pretty decent job, I reckon. So not uncommon for centres to be put on wing when they come in if they've got the body shape for it.
True, very true. Yeah, that's probably my only real concern. I guess my other kind of concern just before I hand it over is, and it's a strange concern, but it's Noffa. And the reason it's a concern is because he's done this before in terms of he played really well to get a new contract, and then he just fell off and played New South Wales Cup. That's my only other concern, that he is not playing for the fire in the belly. He's not playing for a competitive nature. He's playing for money. And like, I think I said this, like not on the podcast, but a couple of years ago, just in conversation with you, he played his best footy when his ass was on the line. He had nothing coming up. He was going to get a run-of-the-mill contract, nothing. And so he played his absolute best footy to get a payday. But then he lost it. And he was like, I've got paid. I'm going to get paid no matter what. Who cares? So that's my only other concern is Nopper.
Yeah, that's fair. I think that, I think you're right. I think it's hard to argue with that. I think Noffa comes off as a flashy sort of independent kind of guy. He doesn't seem to on the socials hang out with all the other boys all that much. He seems a bit of a lone wolf in that regard, but seems happy to be that way. But I think he's the sort of bloke that needs a bit of a hug and a pat on the backside and a little whispering of sweet, confident nothings in his ear. And I think when his ego's pumped up a little bit and he's feeling loved, I think he tends to play his best footy and his hardest footy as well. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see. I think when he's demotivated, he's got a poor poker face and it shows in his game. So if you can get Noffa motivated, I think he plays his heart out. I think he's always going to have a couple of mistakes in him.
Yeah.
Not necessarily handling errors. I think he's a great finisher and he's a good ball carrier and all that sort of stuff, but he can get lazy. And I think that comes when he's unmotivated. So it'd be interesting to see. There's a big new era around the place. So that'd be interesting.
What about yourself?
So for me, ahead of 2025, there's two things. We need to know what our halves are doing and we need to know what the fullback situation is. Because as it currently stands, we don't have a fullback option for this time next year. Neither Dane Laurie nor Charlie Staines are signed beyond this year. So they're both 1 year options. And that's obviously, by design, that's not an accident. So I don't know what the thinking is there. I don't know if it's a wait and see approach to see who clicks better with the current setup. But the bottom line for me is you want to see a strike centre. We need a fullback in my eyes. And every club would love to have a Tedesco or a Travojevic. I don't know where the club goes to buy one. And I don't know that we've got superstars coming through. I know that we've got a few decent outside backs and definitely some good wingers and some good centers and some fullback options. Jareen Buller is one I mentioned earlier. He's, highly touted, but I don't think he is the superstar that you may need. So I think between one of those two, I think they may see themselves re-signed if they start the season okay. And that can be fine, but if that's the case, then we need an upgrade in the halves, because neither Brooks nor Dewey, in my opinion, as a combo, sorry, not Brooks nor Dewey, but those two together, I don't see those two bringing success to the club. Maybe they have the capacity to, and we just haven't seen it because of the squad around them, and they're going to really surprise us this year. I like both of the players individually, and I think they've both got plenty of, I don't say Luke Brooks has potential, but they are good footballers. But as a halves combo, if we're going to go, say, with a Dane Laurie into the future and an Appy as the hooker, then one of those two needs an upgrade. And I think the club feels the same way, hence the reason that they threw the bank at Cameron Munster and they've thrown the bank at Mitchell Moses.
Yeah. Yeah. Except, we could throw the bank at Dewey for $900,000 a year.
Yeah, no, that's not happening.
But we can, like I said, we've rambled on for, almost an hour and a half, over an hour and a half now. Talked about the forwards, talked about the great signings that we have, because those great signings are predominantly forward. We've talked about a predicted 1 to 17. I think we might put a pin on it for this week. And we'll talk about the backs next week and really get deeper into what we would discuss there. I mean, we left you a little bit of a taste of what we are thinking and what our minds are sort of conjuring up. But what do you think? We might just put it in a pin for this week and continue on next.
Yeah, look, Toby needs to get his beauty rest. I understand that. With a head like that, you need to get as much as you possibly can. So, I think he's bang on the money. You got a little,
something in my eye,
scratching your eye there. So I think he's bang on the money. Next week we will have a good look at our back situation. We've touched on it this week, which is a good little starter. We might talk a little bit about the Centre of Excellence next week. Before we wrap up, we might just throw ourselves in the fire with a little prediction, a little bold prediction. It wouldn't be a Tiger Town podcast, even if it is the first one for the year and in the thick of preseason, without a bold prediction. So for 2023, we're probably going to make several of these over the course of the next few weeks heading into the start of March. But what is a bold prediction? Feel free to make it a little bit obscure. None of this we're going to make the eight nonsense. Give me a bold prediction for something to do with the West Tigers Club in 2023, Mr. Toby.
Oh, here's one for you. Dane Laurie will be our top try scorer.
Nice. I like that.
What about yourself?
Okay. I was going to say that David Clem will actually get a recall to State of Origin. And
in that bold, I think it will happen regardless.
Yeah, well, considering he's on the outer. But I was actually going to say that our entire front row was going to get called up, which is Appy Coruscant, David Clemmer, and Steph.
That's a good one. That's a very good one.
I think he's going to have a blistering start to the year. And they may not be the starting front row for New South Wales, but I think all three of them will be in the squad. So our front row will be decimated.
See, it's good, and then you're like, See,
look, I'd cop that to have a few Origin representatives.
For anyone that doesn't know, both Zac and I are diehard New South Welshmen, so we would appreciate that.
Despite living in the belly of the beast up here in Brisbane.
Exactly. Yeah, it's always fun time around Origin, especially when we both go to work with our Blues jerseys on.
Yeah, absolutely. I did also want to make mention as well, and something I'm going to do a little bit this year is I want to plug another couple of podcasts that I and both of us, for that matter, are huge fans of. And if you aren't listening to them, what on earth are you doing with yourself? And that is the West Life podcast by Josh, and you can find that quite easily. They're a lot bigger than us, those boys, but fantastic listen. I don't know if they're back up and running for the year yet, but no doubt they will be. And another cracker of a podcast in the West Tigers black, orange, and white vein is simply called West Tigers Podcast. And those boys are brilliant. And they've actually got a fair little team they do, and they're in conjunction with West Ashfield as well. So, sometimes there's a few spats between similar media outlets and different platforms about, trying to get eyes on them and combat with each other. But I'm actually going to plug both of those pods because I reckon they're brilliant. And go definitely give them a listen. Westlife and the West Tigers Podcast. They've also got online presences as well. So if you are not getting enough out of the boys at Tiger Town here, then feel free, please, to jump over and show those guys support, because ultimately we're all the West Tigers community, and the more support, the better. So back to PSAs. Facebook page, Tiger Town Podcast on Facebook. Hop on, give us a like, and start, comment, engage, all those sort of good things. You'll never miss a drop from our YouTube uploads and our Spotify uploads. Speaking of YouTube, hop over to our YouTube channel, Tiger Town Pod or Tiger Town Podcast, and our fresh episode, which you're probably watching or listening to right now, will be uploaded within us finishing this episode quite shortly. So, look, it's first one back. There's a few bugs, there's a few kinks. There always is. It's a fresh year. We've got to figure out a few things, Toby, and but we'll get there. We're doing it for the love of it.
Got to learn the cameras on me. Got to remember that.
Yeah,
Remember
absolutely.
that.
Like, I did my own makeup tonight for the show, and
yeah,
work to be done there for sure. I won't be entering from the Ronald McDonald palette next time, I don't think, but we'll see how we go. Apologies for Toby in his tardiness, not wearing his beautiful
I'll have it next. I'll have it next video. I'll have it next.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's in the wash, and he didn't get it organised quick enough. So it's a one-man band, but the model in the at the bottom of your screen here, Mr. Zac, is modelling it beautifully. So anyway, we're rambling now, folks. It's been a pleasure to be back. We're so super pumped to be able to do the visual thing on YouTube this year. Thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in.
Before we go, Zac, I've got another plug
and that sounds like that's about it. Toby doesn't want to say anything else. So
very rude.
Oh, sorry, mate.
Sorry.
I may cut you off there.
No, just another plug. We're talking about the visuals, and you're talking about the shirt. Just like to plug those graphics and those designs were actually done by an extremely gifted artist in Brisbane, Tanika J Illustrates. So if you're looking for any sort of illustrations like that, you'll see. If you go to our Facebook page, you'll see our banners, you'll see our logos, you'll see everything like that was done by her. Go follow her on Instagram. She's an amazing artist, has written a couple of books. So yeah, another plug there.
Yeah, beautiful kids' books. I ordered some for my son. I think I picked up a couple from her. They're great. They're crackers.
They're good, aren't they?
Just an amazing freelance artist. Some of the stuff that she does on Instagram is phenomenal. So, hop on and have a look at her work. She's done some absolutely glorious things. So yeah, great to have that support in the visual space.
Definitely.
Pleasure
Awesome.
talking to you, my friend.
Yes, been actually a good kickoff episode. Very, very good.
I think so as well. I think it's been a cracker. Ladies and gents, children of all ages, hopefully over 12. Thank you for tuning in today. We will see you next week, hopefully, for episode 2 for 2023, where we discuss backs and more bold predictions. You can be assured of that. For now, though, Toby, listeners, good evening. And as always, go the Tigers.
Go the Tigers.